recording to the cloud. And hello, welcome fellow Toastmasters and guests to the meeting of online presenters, a virtual Toastmasters club. I'm Sergeant at Arms, Sunny, Dr. Sunny Fridge. Guests, please note, to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. However, if you have substantial, relevant presentation experience, we welcome you to apply for membership after demonstrating your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by our club members. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it displays your name and role. Hover over your video, right-click, and select Rename. Remember, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. As a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we are recording this meeting. Your video and audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. And now, please help me welcome to our virtual stage our club president, Marianne Grady. Welcome, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sunny. I'm so happy to be here tonight. And I'm so happy that you're all here tonight. Here in Florida, it's a rainy day. It's kind of miserable. So what better place to be than online with us? Now, we are going to have a meeting tonight that we're going to be talking about parliamentary procedures, which is like a way to have orderly meetings. And our presenters tonight are Barbara Proctor and Penelope Boehm. And they, Barbara, you said you were from Ocala. I was in Ocala today earlier. I drove from Naples up to Fernandina Beach in North Florida. So for the first time, I was in Ocala. But I want to welcome everybody, and I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief for tonight because it is we have a lot to cover. So without attending any more time, I'm going to introduce our Toastmaster of the day, and that would be Dr. Andrew Byrne. Now, Andy, I don't know, you signed on a little after me, so Barbara and Penelope have asked members of our club to participate tonight. And so we have a few of us who have been assigned some roles, and I guess we're going to learn more about that as we move on. So put your hands together for Dr. Andrew Byrne, our Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you very much, Marianne. And I ask of all Toastmasters in the club and guests who have specific roles that I'm not aware of, please add those roles to your frame so I can see who is doing what. And to do that, you go to the right corner, press on click, and it'll say rename, and choose that and tell us what you're doing. We have an exciting time. As many of you know that are in the club, about once a month we do a workshop and bring people of exceptional skill and benefit of what we want to learn into the club to talk about something that is important. Why is it important? Well, we are spending the 100th year in Toastmasters as an organization. There's a big history there for those that want to learn about it. You can actually get it from the Toastmasters store. There's volumes 1 and volume 2 of the history of Toastmasters. You'll find it very interesting. I trust that everybody would enjoy that if you purchased it. Not that very expensive. Today, we're going to be led in a workshop with presenter Barbara and her colleague. And we are going to, my screen just got shorter, but we're going to have those presenters. And I take it from what I'm hearing from Marianne and Joni, that we're going to be doing some special exercises that they planned in advance. For those that are interested, I put down a whole history of parliamentary procedure and sent it to you in advance, and that went to the executive board. If one of the execs could then send it to the rest of the club, that would really be helpful for them in their future. But let's not waste any time. Let's go right to our presenters and have them lead the program off.
Thank you for the introduction and for inviting us tonight to do a brief review on basic procedures. We do appreciate Penelope is going to be our little birdie in tonight's presentation. Marianne Grady volunteered to be the club president. Member 1 is Graham Kames. Member 2 is Dr. Sunny Fridge. Member 3 will be Dr. Anu Byrne. And everyone, please take 30 seconds to donate a motion in the chat. Motion is a proposal from a member to take action. It can be about any kind of action that you'd like to take. Just remember to start with the words "I move." So let's take a few seconds and go ahead and just type something in the chat. If you don't do it right away as we progress through the presentation and you come up with a good motion, go ahead. Feel free to put it in the chat. Use the words "I move." We will pause at the end of each slide so that everyone can have an opportunity to ask a question if they have a question. Tonight's presentation is A Little Birdie Told Me. Oh, it's Mastering Meeting Skills for Toastmasters Using Parliamentary Procedure. It features basic procedures based on Robert's Rules. We will explore the intersection of Toastmasters and Robert's Rules and how together they help individuals become leaders by enhancing their speaking skills and their meeting skills. We will cover Toastmasters history, basic parliamentary principles, and the benefits of integrating these practices into your personal and professional development. This will enhance your communication skills through structured meetings. A Little Birdie Told Me is the name of the presentation. It is based on Robert's Rules of Order. A lot of people don't like the book. They're like, it's too big, it's too fat. Some people call it the big white book. And you might say, well, why does it have to be so big? It's because it covers every type of situation and every type of meeting for every type of organization. Toastmaster members do not need to know everything in this book. They only need to know what parliamentary procedure is needed for the club meetings, district meetings, and the Toastmasters International Convention. And who is Little Birdie? The Little Birdie is the thoughts, what you might be thinking before you speak, the voice in your head, the subconscious thoughts in your mind to help you say and do the right thing at the right time. It is not, I heard a little bird tell me gossip. It's not that little birdie. It's a little birdie that's in your head. Talk about Toastmasters International. We all know is founded by Ralph Smedley, where Santa Ana, California. And it's based on his vision that was to create a space where individuals could develop their communication skills through practice and feedback, leading to the establishment of the first Toastmasters meeting. The Toastmasters bylaws, Article 1, Purpose, Section 1 states, Toastmasters International is a leading movement devoted to making effective oral communication on a worldwide reality. In the governing documents, Section 2 states, to carry out this purpose, Toastmasters International shall provide communication and leadership programs, Beechcraft programs, leadership training, and instruction in parliamentary procedure, which is why we are here today, to empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. RISE, R-I-S-E, is an acronym to help members remember the core values: respect, integrity, service, and excellence, which guides the organization's activities and members' interactions. The historical background: Toastmasters International chose Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, as its parliamentary authority. Over the years, parliamentary procedures have evolved into standardized set of rules used by various organizations worldwide. And these rules are based on the basic principles: one person speaks at a time after being recognized by the chair. One item of business is considered at a time that is introduced by what we call a motion, what you put in the chat. As soon as a meeting is called to order, all members become equal. They all have equal rights to attend the meetings, to introduce action by making a motion, to speak and debate, and to vote. That's what makes everyone equal. One vote, one member. Robert's rules protect the rights of the assembly as well as the members. All motions are adopted by majority vote, except motions that take away a member's right. Those motions, like limit debate or close nominations, require a 2/3 vote. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Just a question from me. That's something I hadn't thought of. You just said that any vote which would limit a member's right. So the vote, the motion that the speaker no longer be heard, you're saying that would require a 2/3 majority to carry.
A 2/3 vote, yes. If you want to close debate, stop debate, limit debate, it takes away a right, so it's a 2/3 vote.
Thank you. That's something I didn't know after 40 years at Toastmasters.
Well, it makes it very easy to, so many people are so focused on what are all the different rules for all the different situations. And when you think of it that way, it's a lot easier to remember. It's a majority vote, unless it's taken away a right, and then it's a 2/3 vote. Or if there's a rule that requires it, like a motion to amend bylaws that were previously adopted, would require a 2/3 vote. But basically, all motions require a majority vote unless it takes away a right, or there's a rule that requires a 2/3 vote. Any other questions or comments? Okay, these meeting procedures are very important to promote a framework for meetings, to promote fairness, and to ensure clarity. When we talk about the presiding officer, we're going to focus on the presiding officer tonight, the club president and the district director. A lot of people have different opinions about what skills a good presiding officer has to have. So which of these birds do you think best personifies the essence of a good presiding officer? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Just take a few minutes. Eagle, owl, hawk, parrot. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay. Some people might say it's the eagle. Penelope, do you want to tell us why they might think it's the eagle?
No, because everybody in the chat thinks it's the owl.
Well, we'll get to the owl. Why might it be the eagle? I totally understand. Okay, the eagle.
Strong.
I have a thought to why the eagle.
Go ahead.
Eagle is a unique predator in that it's got extreme eyesight. It goes up high and can see like 3 miles clearly to find its food, and then goes and works on its prey. But it sees everything around it, and it's got a great situational awareness, and it's got unbelievable vision.
Yes, yes. And if you want to add to that, Penelope, go ahead. If
No.
not, okay. Okay, why would some people say the presiding officer is, we're going to pick on the hawk because no one picked the hawk, right?
Christine did, so Christine can explain.
Christine, why do you think it might be the hawk?
Because a hawk is one of those birds that really goes far, goes wide. It's not perched kind of like the eagle that is sitting on a branch and observing everything, but it is not as intimidating and imposing as an eagle, but it also has a keen insight, and it's not as feared as the other birds.
Okay, very good. And why do so many people think it might be the owl?
Jim has said, was one of the first people to say owl. Jim?
The owl doesn't say a lot. The owl listens, and the owl is very wise and listens to all the other birds.
Yes, and has knowledge. He knows the parliamentary procedure and he knows the governing documents for the organization. Okay, did anybody say the parrot? No. I would say the parrot. You say, why the parrot? Because as you listen and watch, the presiding officer says the same thing over and over and over and over again. They're constantly repeating what somebody else says.
Want crackers.
Okay. Pardon?
Oh, they want a cracker.
Yeah, probably want a cracker. So you bring a cracker with the presiding officer next time. Okay, Robert's Rules provides clear guidelines in the decision-making process. It allows members to introduce motions to allow them to participate in an orderly process. It allows debate, which encourages members to share their opinions for and against the pending motion. If you're going to take any kind of action, buy a car, buy a house, buy anything, you want to know the pros and you want to know the cons. And the way Robert's Rules is structured, the chair actually asks, if someone speaks in favor of the motion, the chair's going to say, does anyone want to speak against the motion? You invite debate for and against. If someone speaks against, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the motion? We want to hear everyone's opinions to make the most informed decisions. And then we have the voting procedure, which ensures that every member's voice is heard. Later on, we're going to talk about how important it is to take the affirmative vote and the negative vote. So we're going to say, what does this sound like? What are the words to process emotion? Okay, member seeks recognition. How do they seek recognition? They stand and they raise their hand and say, Mr. President, Madam Speaker of the House, whatever the title happens to be. And then the chair recognizes the member by saying the chair recognizes whoever they saw first, the maker of the motion, whoever it happens to be. That was Penelope's line. Go ahead.
The chair.
The chair recognizes.
The chair recognizes member one.
Yeah, whatever the name is. Okay. When you think about this process, think about at a news conference. Everyone's trying to raise their hand, Mr. President, and then whoever the president calls on is the person that gets to ask a question at the news conference. Okay, member makes the motion, and we already talked about that. You use the two words, I move. I move to do something. I move that we do something. You always use these words. It's like key words to let people know. We've had a lot of discussion about a lot of different things we can do, but now we have an official motion to take specific action, and you use those two words, I move. Another member has to second the motion, and unlike Renton's says the seconder is in favor of the motion and actually gives a speech at the time of the second of the motion. And Roberts, the seconder can be anybody. You don't have to be recognized. You just say the word second. And all it means is that at least two people want to take the time to consider that motion during this meeting. That's all the seconder means. It does not have to have their name in the minutes. It's anyone from the floor can say second. Then, most importantly, the chair should state the motion by saying it is moved and seconded to, and repeat the motion. When you repeat the motion, the members know exactly what motion is being debated. The chair invites debate by saying, is there any debate? Is there any further debate? The chair puts a motion to vote by repeating the motion. The question is on the motion, and you repeat the motion. Takes the affirmative vote by saying those in favor of the motion say aye. Takes negative vote by saying those opposed say no. And announces the result of the vote by saying the ayes have it and the motion is adopted, or the noes have it and the motion is lost. It's very important for the chair to repeat the motion before you take the vote, so everyone knows what motion they are voting on. When people don't state the motion before debate or before the vote, the members start getting confused as to what they're talking about. And you take the negative vote, because if you don't take the negative vote, you're taking away a member's right to vote. People have the right to vote no, even if the majority say aye. You still have to take the negative vote to give the members the right to vote and say no. It helps them let off steam. They had a right to speak and debate against the motion. They can be very passionate, and they're very much dead set against the motion. So it's very important to let them have their say and vote no. And then you announce the result so the secretary knows what goes into the minutes. So these are the 6 steps that are very important, and these are the words that we're going to be using later on tonight. Any questions?
Barbara, let's clarify. Christine
ahead.
says in the chat, as a new member, I find this information valuable, and she gives us some reasons, and then she says, therefore, I move that the presenter be requested. Christine, what we're trying to say here is the first thing that happens is the motion. The second thing is explaining the reasons. When somebody makes a motion, they don't say why they're making it. They simply are making the motion to bring a topic up for the consideration of the group. After the motion is made, and if it's seconded, then the presiding officer will call on the person who made the motion to give the reasons. And yes, when a vote for membership, yes, there is definitely a yes and an aye and a no vote for membership, like any other.
Any other questions? These 6 steps are very important. If the only thing you learned tonight is these 6 steps and you have to preside and you print them out and use them, that's a huge step towards having an orderly meeting. Okay, so basic meeting principles, you have to have a quorum present. This protects the organization from only a few members making a decision on behalf of the entire group. If the bylaws are silent, it's a majority. If you don't feel like you can get a majority to attend on a regular basis, you can amend your governing documents, your bylaws, to make it a lesser number. It's always better to have a specific number than to have a percentage, because when you have a percentage, you're always having to recalculate it all the time. Like the 3 apples for $1. You don't want to spend time calculating things. Debate is open to all members to encourage members, like we said, to share their opinions, pro and con, and you have a structured agenda. This ensures that everything that needs to be done gets done in an orderly manner. Using Robert's rules in club meetings ensures you have orderly discussions with respect for alternate viewpoints, and it enhances your meeting effectiveness. The role of the club president is to guide the members through the meeting based on the agenda, to maintain order by following procedures, which is those 6 steps we just talked about, and ensures participation by keeping members informed and giving them an opportunity to speak. And you will see that in the next few slides. Okay, it's time to call the meeting to order, Madam Little Birdie.
So this is where I am the voice of your inner self, and you are there looking at the agenda thinking, oh no, there aren't enough members present to establish a quorum. Ah! Oh, or is there? Inactive members don't count. and we should explain later, we'll go over the meaning of it legally of an inactive member in Toastmasters. What did our club define as an inactive member? But it's important to start on time. Oh, where is everybody? It is Monday. How many members do we need for a quorum? And what do we have to do tonight? Oh, we have to elect club officers. What are the chances of more members arriving? Well, maybe. I know we can postpone the business meeting until later to see if more members arrive.
Okay, Madam President, Mary Ann, what do you say now after all those thoughts?
Marianne, it's no fair doing it on mute, though. That's one of the first rules.
Generally speaking, when we've had business to conduct where we've needed that, we usually have the secretary paying attention to how many we need. And we did reestablish our rules a few years ago, though I couldn't quote to you what they are, about the inactive members, because we were never having the right amount of people at the meeting. So I don't know what they truly are, but I know that we have addressed that in our rules.
Okay, so in the script, what happens now? You've had all of these thoughts and you've decided, so we've gone backwards, sorry. Okay, so now what do you say?
I would say we're going to
On the
postpone
screen.
until the
It's on the screen for you.
Oh, we can
Your
postpone
P.
the business meeting until later to see if more members arrive.
It's what it says P for presiding officer.
P for presiding, yeah.
Oh,
Your script is in,
We should have explained this before we started. I'm sorry. My apologies.
no worries. The meeting will come to order.
Keep going.
A quorum is not present. Without objection, the business meeting is postponed until later to see if more members have arrived to establish quorum.
Okay, so do you want to pause right now to talk about inactive members?
Am I
did you want to
talking
go-
about that to you or to the club?
Barbara, I think it's unclear who you're asking. Basically, what
Well,
she's referring to is that in the governing documents, there are only three classes of membership. One is active members, one is inactive members, and one is honorary members. And as Marianne referenced, each club can make its own definition of what an inactive member is based on guidelines that they then use across the board. A member can request to become an inactive member, and the executive committee can later, upon request, make them active again. But an inactive member, although a fully paying member of the club and of any club dues and Toastmasters International, an inactive member is not permitted to vote, among other things, cannot hold office, cannot participate in a speech contest. And because they cannot vote, they do not count as part of the quorum.
Hey, Dr. Byrne, did you have a question?
Yes, one of the issues as it relates to meetings also has to do, particularly if there's financial activity that the club is doing in a business meeting, has to be the issue of notice. And I didn't hear you talk about notice, because if you don't have proper notice prior to the meeting, you can't really do this legally either.
Right. I believe Toastmasters meetings don't require notice because they occur on a regular basis. You know what they are in advance. But you are correct. If this was a non-Toastmaster meeting and you're going to take any kind of action and the meeting's not on a regular basis, like in your bylaws might say it's the first Tuesday of every month. If it's the first Tuesday every month, you don't need to have notice because it's in the bylaws. But if you don't have regular meetings or they're not always at the same time, yes, you have to have notice, especially like school board meetings and city and council commission meetings. They are required by the statutes to have notice, which supersede anything that Roberts would say.
Okay,
Francois, did you have a question?
there is notice required if you look at the Toastmaster documents, the original governing documents.
Okay, my apologies. I didn't realize the club meetings had to be noticed. But thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so, well, and it said it is Monday. The meeting was noticed, wasn't it? Where's everybody? How many times do you need? I guess I'll add notice to that. Yes, thank you. Okay, Madam Little Birdie.
Introductions. Who's around here? This is all in Marianne's head, by the way. What's the protocol? Who am I to introduce first? Where's my link? I know I saved it. Ah, there it is. Now I remember. Here is my link to the Toastmasters, when to introduce whom, and a guide to protocol. So first, let me see, are there any visiting non-Toastmaster dignitaries and guests? 2, are there any current district officers in their order of rank? 3, are there any division directors in alphabetical order? Although if we're in a home division for a meeting, then the home director would come first. And last, how do I do it? Oh, I list their office first, then their Toastmaster designation in full, then their name, and then if they have somebody accompanying them.
Madam President.
A special welcome to our dignitaries and guests. Please wave when introduced. I think you mean WAVE, right? District Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Joe Blobbs and his partner, Mary Smith. Now please join me to welcome the Toastmaster for this evening, or this meeting.
Okay, now later, after the Toastmasters meeting, turns the meeting back to the president. And I have to comment, as a parliamentarian, when I first joined Toastmasters, I found it very confusing because we always teach people don't put times for things. And when I looked at the Toastmasters agenda, I saw all these times for Toastmasters and evaluators and speakers and stuff. And then I figured out that that part of the meeting is more like what we would call a program. It's an educational part of the meeting, and it's not quote unquote the business meeting. So for first timers at Toastmasters, it might help to explain to them the time does not apply to the business meeting. Okay, Little Birdie?
It's time for the business meeting. Oh no, we still do not have a quorum. What can we do? What about the election of club officers? Oh, well, it's only May. We can hold elections at our next meeting.
The meeting will come to order. We still do not have a quorum.
Okay, Graham?
Madam President,
The chair recognizes Graham Cairns.
Madam President, can I ask what action can be taken given that we don't actually have a quorum here tonight?
We can postpone the election of officers to the June meeting since they do not take office until July 1st.
Yes. Another member just walked through the door. We have a quorum.
Another member just arrived. We now have a quorum.
Now, what do I do next? Oh, I know. Next is the approval of the minutes. And as I recall, it's the approval of the minutes for the last business meeting. But what if we have more than one set of minutes to be approved? I remember, it's the oldest one first.
The first item of business is the approval of the minutes. Without objection, the minutes will not be read because they were distributed. Are there any corrections? There being no corrections, the minutes are approved as distributed.
And if there are corrections, what would the presiding officer say?
I would imagine that you'll say, these are noted, or, oh no, you probably have to get, approval from everybody, right?
If it's something basic and simple, you would say secretary will make the correction. And then what would you say? It's on the screen.
Then we would say the minutes are approved with the corrections.
Right. You ask if there's any further corrections, and there being no further corrections, the minutes are approved as corrected. So a lot of people take the time to ask for a motion to approve the minutes and wait for a second to approve the minutes. And Robert says you can assume the motion. They don't have to be read if they were distributed in advance. And if someone wants them to be read, one person could request that they be read, but it's not necessary if they were distributed. So this is a very easy process for approving minutes.
If somebody were to request they be read, even if they were distributed, do you have to do that, or can you say no? Because, in this, in the efficiency and time, do you really have to do it?
If they are a member, they have the right to request that they be read.
But do you have to do it is my question.
Well, they have the right. I mean, they are a member, they have the right. Robert uses the word one member can demand that they be read. Hopefully the minutes are concise and only include what is done and not what is said, so it doesn't take a long time. If the minutes are long and you really don't want to take the time, you could probably address the person separately and say, if you have no objection, we could go ahead and approve the minutes. And if you find anything that needs to be corrected later, we can always go back and correct the minutes. Dr. Byrne?
Yes, wanted to point out that the need for a second to a motion does not apply if the motion is coming from a committee that's been appointed. For example, if you have an audit committee report, to accept it, you don't need a second. It's being presented by a committee.
That's correct. Now, what happens is someone seconds motion from a committee. What happens if someone does that? Nothing. There's no harm done. They wasted the time saying second, but there's no harm done. If it's a group that needs to be educated in parliamentary procedure, I would remind them. I'd say, thank you for making a second, although second is not needed. But in an ordinary group, I would never embarrass a member by making an issue out of that. Okay, what about recognizing a person to speak? Someone says, Madam President, and you think,
Here we go. Oh no, how do I address this member? By title, Vice President Education or Vice President Membership, or by name. Do I just say Mo or Larry or Curly? And wait, I never can remember that person's name ever. I'll just say the member. But that person there, wait a minute, I know who that is. That's our guest. Our guest doesn't have the right to speak at this meeting. But I wonder, maybe they have something interesting to say. He doesn't usually raise his hand just as a guest. So how can I accomplish allowing that guest to speak? I can use unanimous consent.
Without objection, the chair recognizes our guest, John Smith, to speak.
okay, very good.
Now it's time for the elections. Here we go.
The next item of business is the election of club officers for the coming year, who will take office July 1st.
First thing I have to do is to inform all the members of the process based on the Toastmasters governing documents.
For each office, as the election is reached, nominations may be made from the floor by members in good standing, who may nominate themselves or another member.
Members have to decide then what to do if there's only one nominee.
Without objection, if there is more than one candidate for any office, each candidate will be given an opportunity for a 2-minute speech on their qualifications. Without objection, if there is only one nominee, we will dispense with a ballot vote.
Or member two?
Madam President,
The chair recognizes Dr. Sunny Fridge.
I move
I move that.
I move that we dispense with a ballot vote for any office with only one nominee.
Second.
So now the chair would state the motion and take the vote. So you can see here, Roberts gives you an alternative. When, to save time, you have something that's semi-routine matter, the chair can assume the motion and take action without waiting for a motion, without waiting for a second, and without taking a vote. They just say without objection. If there's more than one candidate, they'll have an opportunity to speak. No one objected, so that's what the rule is. Without objection, if there's only one nominee, we will dispense with the ballot vote. Now you can say, what happens if presiding officer is railroading business through the meeting and they're not giving the members a chance to speak and debate or to make motions or to vote? All you have to do is say one word. I object. I guess it's 2 words. I object. If you say I object, that stops the presiding officer from doing this process, and you have to take the longer process of stating the motion and taking a vote. So it's a little shortcut that's available.
You've got a question from Marianne.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
during elections, they do a lot of repeating of things, like 3 times. And I just feel like it's like so much when you're trying to get through so much. Like, why is that necessary, the 3 times?
That's more of a custom that people have picked up from the ancient times before we had microphones. And you're at a room and you call it, you would shout out the things 3 times for people to hear what had to be said before you continue with the business. It's no longer needed. It's just a custom. Some people still do it. It's really not necessary. But we're going to go through the election process and you'll see how Robert suggests that elections are handled.
Yeah, I think a lot of Toastmaster scripts have it written in there because, usually if I'm doing something like that, I look for a script. And, that I was kind of just like, oh my goodness, look at all that. So
Yeah, no.
I kind of like
But
that,
that's why
you don't have to do it.
And that's why we call this the intersection between Toastmasters and Roberts. Go ahead, Dr. Byrne.
The history of why 3 times comes from the Jewish tradition of almost 6,000 years ago. When they did the services for the High Holy Days, they repeated that service 3 times because people came late to the service and they needed to hear the leader give the prayers on behalf of all the people. So it was adopted into Roberts based on the Jewish tradition that you do it 3 times because people either are not paying attention or they came late and couldn't hear it the first time. That was the rationale.
Thank you. Thank you for that history. I never heard that before, and I really appreciate that for future training. All right.
The next thing that I have to do is to hear the report of the leadership committee. And Roberts calls this the nominating committee, but we call it the leadership committee, even though this report was distributed or given at the last club business meeting. And that is a requirement.
The report of the Club Leadership Committee was timely distributed to all members or at the club meeting prior to this election, and all nominees have agreed to serve if elected. Therefore, the report is valid. The chair recognizes the chairman of the nominating committee, Dr. Sunny Fridge, to report.
Thank you, Madam President. The nominating committee nominated for president Graham Cairns, for vice president of education Sherry.
You don't have to say
Oh,
names.
for
Just
BPM,
understand
for
that the-
BPPR, for secretary, for treasurer,
Right.
for SAA.
Right. For every office, you say the office and you say who the nominating committee reported. And this should say the leadership committee. And then
Oh.
at the end of the report, you would list the names of the committee members and you list the chairman's name first.
Is the chairman usually the immediate past president?
Yes.
For Toastmasters, yes, it's in the documents. Most other organizations, no, but that's a nice tradition and custom that I think is works out very well for the clubs.
I would like to thank the members of the nominating or the leadership committee for their service. The leadership committee is now discharged from their duties.
Okay. So even though it's distributed in advance, it's still a requirement to read it during the meeting.
For each office, I need to announce the name of the member nominated by the leadership committee.
For president,
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse is nominated by the leadership committee. I want to interject again. So you say this list up front, but somebody could run from the floor, so the list
That's-
could change.
That's what we're going to do right now.
Okay.
So the next thing that I have to do is to ask for nominations from the floor. I remembered it.
Are there any further nominations for president?
And if a person nominates someone else, you would say, we'll say Donald Duck is nominated.
Are there any further nominations for president? There being no further nominations, nominations are closed.
Okay. Now the alternatives. Go ahead. Madam
Without
President.
objection, nominations are closed.
Or
Is there a motion to close nominations?
number 3, Andrew.
The question I had was I've seen in clubs or in districts, two different ways of doing this. I've seen the hierarchy where it starts at the president, work its way down, and I've seen where it's been those positions like SAA, treasurer, secretary, working its way up to president. The documents in Toastmasters, specifies an order, but I've seen clubs take liberty with that. What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, first of all, let's finish this slide. Without objection, nominations are closed is an alternative way of doing it. And then you can say, is there a motion to close nominations? Someone actually says, I move to close nominations. You have a second. It's moved and seconded to close nominations, and then you have to take a vote. So there's 3 processes. One, Robert says the chair can assume the motion by saying there being no further nominations, nominations are closed. If you want to do a longer process, you could say without objection, nominations are closed. And if someone wants to make another nomination, they can say, I object. And the third way is to actually have a motion made, seconded, and then take the vote. To answer Dr. Burns' question, the theory is you start at the top. If you start with president and you have 2 individuals running for president, and one person loses, obviously, both can't win. The person that loses, because Toastmasters have you ask for nominations after every office, the person that was not elected president would be available to be nominated for VPE or VPM or any other office they would want to. So typically you start at the top If someone loses, they could be nominated for a lower position. And to allow that, instead of having one ballot with all of the officers at one time, like some people do, Toastmasters wants you to open nominations from the floor for every office individually, vote on that office, and then you move to the next position that's on the list. So this is the election process. Any questions about the nominating process? You state who's
do
who's
have one.
nominated by the committee, you ask for further nominations, and then you close nominations.
I do have a
We've got a bunch of
question.
questions here. Yeah.
All right. Well, in Jamaica,
Good.
it's a drop off a head, land on shoulder, which means what you miss at the top, which is why you go president, etc., like you said. But when it comes
like
to
that.
an editable ballot, when you're doing it at a meeting level where it's in person, it's easy to ask the question and add them. But when it's a digital format, for example, Google Docs, etc., that's hard to edit. How do I put this now? What advice do you give a club? I would say find something that's editable on the day to utilize, or something that can have a blank space that the person can write in the name. But do you have any suggestions? Because when you're in person, all you do is say it and people raise their hand to vote, right? But how would we do it electronically for a club like ours that we're doing it in the chat or a Zoom poll, etc.?
There's a lot of variables. Like you said, in person, you typically, if you have more than two people, if you have more than one person, you have two people running for an office, you want a ballot vote. So people can vote however they want to vote without being intimidated. And you just give a blank piece of paper to everyone around the room, and they fill in that piece of paper and people collect it and they count it. Electronically is more challenging. Some people might use a poll. Candidate A, candidate B. If you're really good at Zoom meeting, you can create a poll on the fly. Other people, and this is what our club, our district person does. She has a Google form. So when after elections are closed, she updates a Google form with the two names, and then she sends a link to that Google form. You click on the link, you vote, the Google form is your ballot, and then you submit it, and it goes to a spreadsheet where the tellers can tally. If you don't have someone that's that good with Google Forms, another alternative is to pay someone like Election Buddy or Election Runner. And another alternative is to have a designated teller, a chairman of the elections committee, and have individual members send their vote privately by chat to that person. The problem with that is that person knows how people voted. If you use the other methods, you don't know how they vote. If it's if I'm a parliamentarian for a group, they send their votes to me as a parliamentarian because I'm not a member. I don't know anybody. I don't care who's elected, not elected. And I have a list of members so I can make sure that only members voted. It's a direct chat to me and I can tally the votes for them. So there's a lot of different alternatives depending on what best suits your situation. Last year, I attended 3 different district council meetings and all 3 of them did it differently. So there's a lot of choices. Any other questions? We're on green. Is that green hummingbird because we're running out of time?
Yes.
We are in trouble, Madam Birdie.
Yes.
Okay, so,
We've
okay,
just
go
covered
ahead.
we've just covered that elections are done separately for each. We've covered what to do if there's only one candidate and what to do if there are multiple nominees. If there's a tie vote, if there's a tie, then you keep reballoting
Have to reballot, yes.
until you end up breaking your tie. I think we should skip over this unless someone
Okay.
particularly wants all of this script.
Oh, well, the next is you want to do the practice with the birthday thing or no? That's what's next.
Yeah. Marianne, is that okay with you if we go a little faster through the rest of this election thing? Or were you particularly
Well, we
anxious?
finished elections. Everybody got elected. You had one nominee, so-and-so's, there'd be no further nominations, the person is elected. If you have multiple, you have a ballot. instructions, and then at the end by your vote, so-and-so is elected. Whew. We made it through elections.
New business is next.
The next item of business is new business. Is there any new business?
Who's member 3? Andrew.
Andy,
I think it's Andrew. Yep.
I move that we celebrate Ralph Smedley's birthday with some cake in his honor, and it should be chocolate.
Second.
it is moved and seconded that we celebrate Ralph Smedley's birthday with some cake in his honor. Is there any debate?
And 2, Dr. Sunny.
Dr. Sunny's
Mr.
raising her
President,
hand.
Madam
for the
President,
chair, right.
The chair recognizes Sunny Fridge.
I move to amend to insert Chester after Ralph.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to amend the motion to insert Chester after Ralph.
Remember to keep the members informed and tell them what the motion will be if the amendment is adopted.
If the amendment is adopted, the motion will be that we celebrate Ralph Chester Smedley's birthday with some cake in his honor. Is there any debate?
Do you have debate? And then what do you say?
Is there any further debate?
No further debate? No one is seeking the floor. Let's take the vote. I have to first restate the motion.
The question is on the motion to amend to insert Chester after Ralph.
And remember to keep members informed and tell them what the motion will be if they vote yes on the amendment.
If the amendment is adopted, the motion will be that we celebrate Ralph Chester Smedley's birthday with cake in his honor.
Let's take a voice vote.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
Oh.
The ayes have it, and the motion to amend is adopted.
Madam Chair, I wish my vote no to be recorded.
Okay, continue with the script.
The question is on the motion as amended that we celebrate Ralph Chester Smedley's birthday with cake in his honor. Is there any debate?
Or
The noes have it, and the motion to amend is lost. The question is on the motion that we celebrate Ralph Smedley's birthday with cake in his honor. Is there any debate?
okay, the key here is once you vote on the motion to amend, you can still debate the main motion.
Wow.
Back to the main motion. And Joni has a question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is this the part where if the flavor like chocolate wasn't stated, or people are good with cake, they just don't want chocolate because not everybody eats chocolate, it has to be chocolate or vanilla. This is where you throw in, not everybody eats chocolate, it has to be half and half.
This
Right,
is fair.
to make a motion to amend, you should raise your hand, be recognized, and say, I move to amend the motion to insert the word chocolate before cake. You want to have an orderly meeting, and that's the way to keep order, because that way it would allow for debate on whether or not to insert chocolate. Because like you said, some people might not like chocolate. Other people might say you can handle it as a friendly amendment and go ahead and say, without objection, the motion is inserted to add chocolate. And someone would have to say, I object. And then the chair would say, is there a second to the motion to amend to insert chocolate before cake? So calling out something is not a correct format for making a motion.
It is moved and seconded to amend to strike out cake and insert cupcakes and balloons. If the amendment is adopted, the motion will be that we celebrate Ralph Chester Smedley's birthday with some cupcakes and balloons in his honor. Is there any debate? The question is on the adoption of the motion to amend to strike out cake and insert cupcakes and balloons. If the amendment is adopted, the motion will be that we celebrate Ralph Chester Smedley's birthday with some cupcakes and balloons in his honor.
Okay,
Okay,
Chester
it's
is
getting a lot easier.
Yeah, Chester is in parentheses because I didn't know if it's going to be adopted or not.
Oh, gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
yeah, it was not adopted. So, okay, so this time we're going to change the voting method.
Let's change it up and have members vote by raising their hands.
Those in favor, raise your hands.
We're short on time. Go ahead.
Those opposed, raise your hands. The affirmative has it, and the motion to amend is adopted. The question.
Chair,
What?
I raised the question to call a division.
Right. If you have a voice vote and the outcome is unclear, division is the proper method. All you have to do is say division or call division, and it forces the chair to retake a voice vote by a rising vote. Okay, you want to go ahead and say what happens if the negative has it?
Do you want me to read the script right now?
Yeah.
So is there any debate, or the negative has it and the motion to amend is lost? The question is on the motion as we celebrate Ralph Smedley's birthday with cake in his honor.
We're back to the main motion. I wonder if there's going to be any further debate.
Is there any debate?
No. Oh, phew. Let's vote on the main motion.
And so you go ahead and take the vote on the main motion. So this is our demonstration. We wanted to take time to practice. And I know the timekeeper is being very generous and letting the yellow hang out there for a while. Oops, red. The first one, main motion adopted, was proven applicant. And you see they make the motion, you state it for debate, you state it, and then you take the vote. And the second motion was lost to purchase a video camera. You make the motion, the chair states it, asks for debate, state the motion again, and then take the vote. So the resources, Robert's Rules of Order in brief, the importance of scripts. When you have a script, it's so much easier. And perhaps we can all agree that the presiding officer is an eagle at some times, a hawk at other times, an owl and a parrot, and is very thankful for the little birdie. Thank you for the time to do this presentation.
Just before the Toastmaster takes it back, can I add one last thing on that last vote? I just want to add this because I think it may come up in future training
Definitely.
sessions. The reason that I voted against the motion to include the word Chester is because his name wasn't Ralph Chester Smedley, it was Ralph Chestnut Smedley. He wasn't actually named after a nut, it's a family name. But yeah, so the
Is really Chestnut and not Chester?
It's Chestnut.
Oh, wow. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's just one of those bizarre things.
Point of order, right?
Yeah, I should have actually raised it as a point of order rather than voting no, but I figured we were running out of time. But just for your future training, you may want to add that in.
Yeah, no, thank you.
His name is actually Chestnut, not Chester. It was Ralph Chestnut, family name, Smedley.
You
Wow.
can get back for him asking for a reconsideration.
I withdraw. I take my amendment off the table.
All right, so now, sorry for interrupting. Now I'll hand back to the Toastmaster so he can actually do this in an orderly fashion.
All right, it's now 20:48. And currently the plan, I thought we were going to go the whole way, but we have a reserved table topics master to cover the time or not?
Well, the table topics was supposed to be us getting some practice on moving motions, I believe, for Barbara and Penelope. So this extra time was so that we could do practice for us, the members of the audience.
In that case, Mr. Chair, I would move that the extra time be allocated to asking if there are any outstanding questions for our presenters.
Very good. Are there any outstanding questions for our presenters?
I know there are several in the chat that we didn't get to.
Yeah, and I sent some documentation that identifies what motions requires 2/3, what motions are simple majorities, what motions can interrupt the speaker and which motions cannot interrupt the speaker. There's that whole classification as well. So you need to know that too if you're going to get into it.
And I can make it very easy. All motions require majority vote unless they take away a right, 2/3 vote, or a rule requires it. If you use the words "I move to" when you make the motion, it cannot interrupt. The only motions that can interrupt is like I call for the orders of the day, point of order, I appeal for the decision of the chair, I raise a question of privilege. They don't start with the words "I move to." If you say "I move to," you cannot interrupt. And there's always exceptions. Exception is the motion to reconsider. So those basic things help make it easy. Another thing people say, when does a motion require a second? If you say "I move to," it requires a second. If you don't say "I move to," it does not require a second. Call for the orders of the day, appeal does require a second. That's the exception. So if you look at the overall picture, it's not as intimidating as it is when you look at some of these charts. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to remember all of that?
Just a word of praise or appreciation. I mean, I don't think I absorbed all of this, but I did like the clarification on the 2/3 rule to take away a right. That's a good guideline for really understanding it. And also, I think one of the things that probably is most valuable is stating clearly, if you vote yes, it means this. Because I definitely have been in meetings where people are like, wait a minute, what did we just vote on? What did that mean? I'm so confused. And often there is great confusion, and particularly if you have arguments and they're happening all out of order. And I was at a Democratic Club meeting last week, so that's why I know
Okay.
how this works.
But the other thing
it doesn't
too is
work.
when you speak in debate, it's good to say "I'm speaking in favor of the motion," or "I'm speaking against the motion" first. So people know how you're thinking, they listen to your reasons. And I've seen debates where they have such great reasons, but I forgot how they wanted me to vote. At the end of the debate, you say, "I urge you to vote yes," or "I urge you to vote no." So you know what you want me to do. Chat, did you have, oh, that's
Yeah,
Johnny?
Johnny's recognized next and Graham after her.
Right. I did have a couple of questions. Personally, I wanted to know, because you said about the inactive members that you can ask to be made an inactive member, but would there be a handout for this session? And do you know of any paperwork? This goes to Andy as well, because he tends to have all the links of what constitutes a Toastmasters inactive member, so that because there should already be a rule for that, especially when it comes to the elections.
If you check,
It's actually not true. I'm sorry, Andy.
I was answering Johnny's question. If you check back during the club time when Carol Persinski was a member of the club, that whole issue of active versus inactive was raised and put into chapter minutes, that the chapter had, or the club had decided that you need to have a minimum of 3 consecutive visits to be an active member. If you were gone, let's say for 2 or 3 months, you would not be considered an active member. And so if a vote came up at that time, the question would be to the secretary looking up the minutes, how many previous meetings did you attend? If you didn't attend any in the last several months, then you would be being classified as inactive for the vote.
It's each club can define its own definition of inactive.
Right.
And there used to be a place in each
That
club's
would be in the
bylaws
bylaws.
that you could actually insert it. Since they redid the website, I don't think you can actually type it in anymore. So it makes it much harder for clubs to keep track of what they did. But
You
but
actually have to do it separately now. That was one of the problems that we had with one of my clubs. We actually have a motion at that club that active members are those members who have been in attendance for at least the previous 2 meetings, excepting those who have sought apology for tonight's meeting. That way, you know that they are actually active members. But yeah, there is no easy way of doing it anymore other than save it into your club bylaws and make the secretary keep a copy.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
realize that the
not good.
clubs have, the first level or order is from the charter from Toastmasters themselves. The second order is the variations that are put in by districts, because districts can modify the process from the Toastmasters. And then the third order is the club can make modifications that affect the club. So there's 3 levels of potential change that you look at. The first one is found in the governing documents. The second is found in the district recorded documents. And the third is found in the club documents.
Right, thank you for that. Now, as chat monitor, I would like to report because I love these motions. When you asked earlier about the motions that were moved, Sunny actually moved that Online Presenters Club holds an open house for the month of their anniversary. Christine, I like this one. I second before I even say it. I moved that the presentation be requested. So I like that motion. So I'll do that, or a handout, because this was a lot of very valuable information. Andrew moved that we laugh 1 to 2 minutes at the beginning of each Toastmasters meeting, but I believe we covered that. But I think we would have had to amend because he specifically said the beginning, right? And for Graham, I think we might have to vote on this one. I move that a vote of thanks be delivered by the club president to our guest presenters at the end of the meeting.
So moved. That's where somebody says second.
Well, Marianne, can
Second.
it as a unanimous consent motion.
Vote by acclamation, yes.
Vote by acclamation.
Right done.
Oh, Andy, are you done for the night?
Well, we normally sit at this point in time, the last few minutes, sit down with Joni, identifying who's going to do what roles next week so that we don't go into the next week's meeting without knowing. So I turn it over to Joni at this point. I wanted to thank all of our guests. Since we're down to like 3 minutes, we're going to go back to the guests after we do the official meeting ending at 9 o'clock because we want to keep to our agenda. And then after the meeting is officially over at 9, then we'll hear from our guests about what they thought of our meeting and our workshop. Go ahead, Joni. You have 3 minutes.
In the interest of time, everybody check your email or your WhatsApp or me in your direct chat. So I will now turn back over to Marianne to.
Okay. So wasn't that a phenomenal presentation? I know I learned a lot and I hope all of you did too. Thank you very much, Barbara and Penelope. We are very grateful for your time and expertise. Now, I see that we have some guests with us tonight.